Hello and welcome to In Search of Purpose with Sal Hanvey. Hello and welcome. I'm Sal Hanvey and this is my podcast, In Search of Purpose. This week I have the pleasure to invite to you Barry Keil. Hello, Barry.
Hey, Sal. Thank you for having me on.
Not at all. Thanks very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. What are you up to today?
Not much, it's another day of lockdown, another day of quarantine. So it's kind of, I think, probably like a lot of people, you're spending a lot of time trying to, I don't know, well, for me, it's like trying to differentiate the days, not let it all just become Groundhog Day, really, trying to find different things to do. I mean, it's been, I think this week with the weather not being as good, we've been really blessed up until this point with some sunshine, and that was great. We were just outside all the time, and it made it really active and fun. It's been a wee bit harder this week to kind of feel like each day doesn't kind of quite blur in. So we're at the moment, well, I say my wife Sophie's in the back garden at the moment with the stabilizers off. Christian, our youngest, our 4-year-old's bike, and we're trying to get him to ride his bike without stabilizers. So she's trying to. I'm saying we. I think that, like, as if I'm not active in that at all. So
I hope that you don't miss the moment because you've been on the podcast.
I know. No, it's okay. I mean, I got to see. We did that with Heidi last year, and I was lucky I was there whenever she saw it. I'm quite happy for him to crash into things out there and not let me see it. He's a little bit less focused than Heidi was. I think it's probably he's a little bit more like, I was a really clumsy kid, and Christian's, a little bit, a live wire. And
very similar, is he?
Yeah, I think he's inherited all the bad bits from me. And probably anything good comes from Sophie. I think that's really both of our kids are like that. All of their negative things are like my fault.
Oh, nice stuff.
Probably.
Oh, so what are you doing then if you're not able to go out and stuff? What sort of stuff are you able to do?
I think, again, I'm sure there are a lot of parents out there who have struggled a bit with the managing the homeschooling and things like that. That's something I gotta be honest, we didn't really do a great job of in the first few weeks, and we've kind of, obviously Christian's in nursery school or preschool, so there's not too much to do with him. His language skills and things are very good, but his focus is not good, so we're trying to work on that, but that's tricky at the minute because everything's playtime. Heidi is in year 2 going into year 3, so we're working on her. Again, I say we, and this is all Sophie doing this. I keep going, oh well, I read with them, and Sophie's loving playing school teacher at the moment, so yeah, she's done a lot of that. But yeah, we kind of try to focus a wee bit more on that over the last few days, trying to do lots of crafty things and stuff. But it's really playtime, and we're trying to. I mean, the thing about this situation that everybody's enduring at the moment is, man, obviously there's lots of different ways that people are experiencing it and approaching it. There's a lot of difficult times for people out there. But I've got to say that for us at the moment, we're just trying to embrace the best of it. We're very, very fortunate inside our family that we haven't really had anybody that's been affected by it. At the moment, we have some people, wider acquaintances that had some effect. Some people who have come through it, and some people that have lost some people to it. So, but immediately to us, we're very fortunate that everybody's healthy. So we're just trying to look at this and going, this is a really, a sort of unprecedented chance for us to be a family together and spend an awful lot. We'll never have this opportunity to spend as much time together again. My occupation can be very time demanding.
Yes, that's what I want to actually get on to talk a bit about, because this is, as you say, this is unprecedented and also extremely different from your usual day-to-day. So for anyone who's watching this or having a listen, obviously the tags will be there in order for people to see the sort of stuff that you do, but I would really like just to give you the opportunity now just to explain a bit about what you do for anyone who is listening and watching, Barry.
Well, thank you. Well, I work I'm a freelance worker with inside film and television production. My role is I'm the first assistant director on the project. And what that role encompasses is it basically it's logistics and planning in terms of the film production. So I kind of have an overview of the whole production process. I'm brought in, I get the film scripts or TV series scripts or whatever way they come to us. I dismantle that in a way. I break down all of the different elements of that. And from that, I create a schedule that we have to work to. That will be determined by a lot of factors between availability of assets, and assets could be anything from the actors that you're using, who's available to us at a point of time, when that we can have them, where we can film at certain times, lots of different things. And from that I create a schedule that we bring into the production. And
sometimes you get in the script before you even know who the main character
will
be.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So you get that, you get the script. I mean, what happens to me is I get it, and I kind of break it all down, and I'll create a kind of a document that says, well, this is how I think it should film. And then somebody will go, oh, well, yeah, this person's now being cast as this actor. This actor's been cast as this character. And they're only available to us for 4 days in this week. And so you got to go shift everything around. And then this person crosses over with them. And then you have to, and it becomes like a jigsaw puzzle. And you're trying to fit it all together into the most logistically proper way, and where you're using your resources to the best of your abilities and making sure that it's manageable. And then it's my job then, once we get into the production, so I do that in what we call the prep period. And then once we get into the production, it's my job to then make sure that plan is stuck to, and we achieve everything that we need to achieve to create the project, to finish the project. So it becomes then an awful lot about liaising with all of the different, there are many different departments that do, everybody is very specialized, in this world, so you have people who are very, very sharply focused on one specific area of the production. I like my analogy I kind of use is that if we kind of think about, there's all these different departments. So things people know: the camera department, the costume department, the makeup department, the sound department. All of these people. Special effects department. These people are all very, very kind of laser focused on that specific element. And I like to think about it. Well, if you think of each one of those different departments as an island, well, my department we're the ocean that these islands exist within. We connect all of these.
Okay, analogy, yeah.
Because people are obviously very, very focused on their own individual role, and sometimes that maybe it doesn't allow them to see the big picture. Everything I do is big picture, so I have to look and go, well, look, if I had this, say for instance, if the camera department have decided, the director of photography has decided, oh, well, I want to use this camera crane, or like a special piece of equipment or something like that that's coming in. Well, you go, well, look, okay, well, how do I maximize what we do with that? Well, what other elements do I need to bring in? What sets would that be best used for? So you're trying to look at all of these things and create this structure that utilizes everything you have to the best of your ability and make sure that it's manageable going forward.
It seems like a minefield, or an ocean full of islands.
Yeah, an ocean full of mines. It can be. It becomes an awful lot about reading personalities. You have to kind of understand that you're working. It's the same for anybody in any sort of, I suppose you might call it a management role in any sort of job. You're dealing with a lot of different people, and you're looking for how do you bring the best out of those people. What I kind of find is obviously there are a lot of different personalities, and because of the nature of my industry, you work with people who, you might have some very, very practical people that you work with who are very, nuts and bolts, and this is how this exactly is set. Then you're working with a very creative people, and sometimes trying to get that to kind of gel together can be complex, because it's one thing to try and say, well, we can have this shot up and running in 5 minutes, but the actor might be somebody who wants to take their time over something, or the director might want to spend more time with somebody working through things, or and the vice versa. That can happen. You can work in situations where you've got the creative types, and this is actually probably more often the case. You've got the creative types who people might think of a bit more, sort of emotional about
That's
things.
what I was thinking. You say that's when you're saying it.
But you very much can get a situation where an actor walks in and just goes, I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's go. And we're going, well, we still got another like 10 minutes of setting these lights, and then we got to fix this, and then we got to, so you're going to have to bear with us. And then it's all that, So what I'm always trying to do is minimize all of those little times where there's lag. You're always looking for the next opportunity to kind of cut through something and get this next thing set up and this next thing ready, so that we're never really waiting around, because there's a lot of waiting around. I mean, you sort of think that a film can take anywhere really from 5-6 weeks to 14-18 weeks to make, for a single feature film. And if you're working a TV series, there's generally a little bit of a tighter shooting time, but those are a television series can take 16-18 weeks to film, so it's a lot of time spent, and you're always fighting against losing that time. That's your most precious commodity that you have. So
whereas the complete opposite is happening now, where you've got all this time.
And
So different.
Yeah, it's funny. It's made me really stop and think, and I think like everybody's kind of paused at the moment. Well, not everybody. There are essential workers out there, and it's very nice to find out that I am not an essential worker. There are definitely people who are much, much more essential than me. I think it's actually kind of made me go, oh, it's going to be a big shift of gears, whenever you kind of get back into things, because we've had this kind of time to slow things down, and focus on. I mean, for me, it's been focusing on the things that really actually are truly important, as my family, and it's spending time with them,
and you always know that is the case, but it's just literally, they say that sometimes, you can't get better until you get worse. And hindsight is a wonderful thing, and it is getting a priority shift in place, understanding what are the things that actually really, really mean to us, and the value of the things. And, as we were talking about, it really is about it's changing, shifting priorities, isn't it, Barry?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I suppose if not to disagree, I think what I'm seeing now and what are my priorities right now are always my priorities, but what I'm just getting to do is spend the time on them. My priorities are my family, my wife, my children, and I think if I look at it and go, the only thing that I'm not getting to do is my wider family. I'm not getting to see. Say we've got two young children, 4 and 6. So our social life is kind of nosedived for the last 6-8 years. There's not like too much like, oh, I'm missing getting out with my buddies to the pub. That's just not happened for a long time, or not very often.
And the kids aren't even getting like any social interaction with any other children, which I mean, when think about looking back on how they'll feel in years to come, looking back on this time, I'm sure it'll be very, very strange, because obviously when we were 4 and 6, we never had a situation like this.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think again, our situation is we're pretty fortunate in that, because of their age, they are still each other's primary playmate. Heidi's obviously got little friends at school, and and she misses them, and she does talk to them. We've had them, like the little video chats and stuff like that with their little best friend, and and they're close with their cousins, and so we talk with them, so, but really day to day they are still each other's main playmate. So they get up in the morning, and again, and it will change, no doubt, at some point, but they get on very well. They really love each other. Mm-hmm. They drive each other up the wall at times, and they get frustrated with each other, mostly over who gets to choose what to watch on Netflix. But they really do play very well together. So their day-to-day hasn't changed that much, apart from the lack of structure that we're all encountering, and and they're just sort of enjoying it because they have mommy and daddy here all the time. So that's been really good for us. We enjoyed it. We're not. I think it would be different if we had 8, 9, 10-year-olds, or maybe even teenagers, you know, where obviously their social circles become so much more important to them. But we're fortunate at this point that we're still, as a nucleus, as a family, still the kind of the main people for each other.
Yeah, it's good. It is good. And, you know, obviously it is the complete extreme polar opposite to what you're usually expecting. You're usually away quite a lot with work, and then you're back and away and back and so on. So this is obviously, you know, a major hiatus for you with regards to your work.
Yeah.
When it comes to the work that you do, what actually got you into doing it in the first place, Barry? Because, you know, it's a sort of thing that it's a very unique discipline.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of stumbled into it, to be honest, which sounds really weird. It's like I kind of come out of university and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think whenever I was in school, like I just thought, well, I studied English and history and things like that. So I think I did that at university. And I think everything was just geared to, or what really I think the simplistic thing there at the time you were just being told was, go be a teacher, be a teacher. And that's what I kind of thought I wanted to do right through university. And then I kind of came through university and I thought, well, you know, I don't want to go straight into education again. You know, I don't want to go university to teacher training to straight into a school. My life will have been in education. I kind of want to, the thing I felt was like, I want to separate myself from that for like a little bit. I thought I'd go out, work in the real world for a couple of years, do a 9 to 5, do that, then make the choice to go back and study again, and maybe do a master's or do something like that, and then go into teaching. And so I came out and I got into, I just did some office jobs, you know, and I hated them, you know, it just wasn't me, it just wasn't,
Snap.
I was miserable, you know, doing that stuff. It just wasn't an environment that I like to work in. And it really made me question things. And I just quit. And I was fortunate again, when I was like in my early 20s, I was living at home. I could make choices like that. I had enough. And then I kind of, sorry, this is a real roundabout way. I then fell into doing archaeology. Well, I had a history degree. My cousin's an archaeologist, works for the National Trust at the moment, and he was at the time working in Dublin. This around about the end of the 1990s, and a lot of expansion around Dublin at the time, and there was a lot of archaeological surveying going on around all of these new road schemes, and he was kind of doing a lot of work down there. And I basically quit my job on a Friday and started working on Monday doing archaeology, and I really loved it. I loved it. It was great because it was something where I've always been somebody who's felt like, you know, it's good to use everything of you. You know, you want to use your brain, but you want to use your body. You want to use everything, something like that. You know, I would hate to be doing one or the other. You know, not have a role where I felt like I'm using everything of myself. You know, it's just so I kind of, because I was new to it, I was doing a lot of grunt work. I was big and I was digging and, you know, and that sort of stuff. But then, you know, there was exciting things when you discovered stuff, and you know, you did a lot of recording things. I really, really loved doing it. And I can sort of see some sort of parallels to what I end up now doing. You know, it was project based. It was, you know, there was some, you were working in sometimes difficult physical conditions. You were working with a really disparate, you know, group of people. You know, you had some very intellectual people, and you had some people who were just there, you know, who were kind of laborers, you know, and that don't want to sound like there's any distinction there. That's all interesting. That's all, you know, you've got different people, and I love seeing all that cooperation between people who've got different skills to bring to bear. And so I really kind of liked doing that, and I thought, this is what I want to do. And I was kind of in my mid-20s, and I thought, well, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to study archaeology, and I'm going to become an archaeologist. And at that point, I kind of thought, well, okay, if I'm making this choice now to go and do another 3 years of education and then get into this again, and should I just consider all options, anything that I want to do? Should I just look and be sure that this is, because I'm in my mid-20s now. I don't want to make this, I think I probably felt at that stage that I had to make that choice now. You know, I couldn't delay it any further, you know, which I don't necessarily agree with anymore. I think you can make changes and you can do different things much later. You know, I think, you know, I certainly don't really believe I knew who I was until probably my early 30s, really. I don't think I really kind of got the core of who I am
Yeah,
until.
again, same here. And I was reading an interesting article a couple of weeks ago about men and their role in the workplace.
Hmm.
How it's funny how we use the word man-made, but
Yeah.
being on a computer is a
Hmm.
man-made technological advancement, but it leads to a very sedentary lifestyle. So a lot
Yeah.
of people who are on computers then have to go out maybe and run, or they have to go to the gym as well as, and it's that kind of thing where I know that you would do things like that anyway, but
Mm.
the necessity, if you're in a sedentary role sitting at a computer all day long, wasn't what nature intended originally. But I can understand that a lot of people are very good at what they do, and all these people add and contribute so much to society and what's needed to contribute. But at
Yeah.
the same time, our roles have shifted in the sense that we're not all running around active anymore the same way that we used to be. But some
Hmm.
people are very happy with that transition. But
Yeah.
obviously for you, it's something that you've always, as a primal instinct, always needed as part of your being and substance, is to make sure that there's a physicality to the work that you do.
I think so. I think it's just about. I think movement makes you feel good, and well, it makes me feel like I feel like I kind of thrive off that a little bit. That just sort of getting out and moving around. There's nothing. I mean, I sit when I prep a production. I could be anywhere sort of 4 to 8 weeks sitting in an office. Now that it's broken up, you'll be going out and you'll recce locations, and you go and see things. But an awful lot of it is sat at a desk, and so I would say it's probably maybe like a third of my work is spent like in an office kind of situation.
Are they the times
But
that you
every,
would go to the gym more often then? Would you feel that
definitely,
urge? Yeah.
yeah. I think it's easier then as well because you're slightly more structured days. You're working not necessarily office hours. You maybe like 8 till 6 p.m., 7 p.m. But you've got some sort of structure. Whereas when you're in your production, your working hours can be um, really all over the place. You could be on night shoots for weeks. So you could be trying to do that, or you could be really early starts. I mean, you're always on a long day, no matter what. You're averaging out a 12 to 14 hour day.
Yeah.
Once you take into account travel and everything like that, and what you do, so you're pretty much in 12 to 14 hour day. So that makes it difficult. I've always found I was very unhealthy for a long time, and I try and I've slipped back being unhealthy again. But I kind of started a few years ago to kind of take my health a bit more seriously. I think really once children came along, I just sort of thought, well, look, I kind of my children came to me a little bit later in my life. I was just Heidi was born just before I was 40,
Wow.
and I want to be an active dad for them. I want to be there and running around and chasing them. They're really active kids, and they need energy. And so I kind of thought, well, I need to go. I need to exercise. I need to go to the gym. I need to do things like that. And the only thing I was really willing to sacrifice was my sleep. I got up early. I would get up before the family woke up, and I would go to the gym, and then I would come back, and I might miss the first 30 minutes of breakfast time, but
Wow.
that's the only thing I didn't want to sacrifice. So that's easier whenever you're in a much more structured kind
Mm.
of work timetable. Obviously, once you get into the production stage and you're filming and you're working these 12, 14-hour days, it becomes harder. And I've managed it sometimes, but it's tricky. But yeah, I'm terrible for this, by the way, of tangenting off into. So I mean, I'll bring it
You're
back to how
saving me. You're saving me from going on a tangent. So go ahead.
I'll bring it back to how I got started. So into this industry. So I kind of I was looking to do all these options, and my brother had just graduated from University of Ulster Coleraine, and he'd done media studies there, and he'd always been very focused, like really from he'd had an artistic background. He wanted to work. Another cousin of mine, actually the sister of the cousin I was working with doing archaeology, had worked in film. She again had done a lot of art, and she moved into camera work, from photography to camera. And my brother had really been inspired by her, and he really wanted to get into that. So he came out of University of Ulster having studied media, And he got in touch with Northern Ireland Screen, or the Northern Ireland Film Commission as they were at the time, and they set him up in a number of placements. And so he gave me a call, and he kind of said, look, I was working in Dublin at the time, doing archaeology, and he said, look, I need some help on Saturday. I'm doing this thing. It was like a crime watchy reconstruction video. Some company from England were coming over to make this thing, and he was going to be like a runner, just doing the kind of donkey work on the stuff, and he needed somebody to shift around some cars for him on the day. He said, look, you coming up this weekend, would you come and help me? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I went up, and I gotta say, these guys, I can't remember, they were giving him a hard time. They were not being good to him, and I was being a bit the defensive big brother, and I was like, I think these guys are just being horrible to him. They're really treating him badly. They're like not giving him any respect. And Andrew, my brother, who I'm super close with, we were first saying he's a little bit more, kind of emotional about those sort of things than I would be, and he was getting just, fed up with it. And I kind of thought to myself, you know what's happening here? It sort of feels like more like the sort of thing that I had traditionally done. With our group of friends, I'd always been the organizer. I'd always been the guy, those things. And I sort of thought, maybe this is something that I could do. Maybe I could find some. We'd always loved movies, and we'd always, we'd lived in our imaginations when we were kids. We were always like that. We always, movies and, TV things and comic books, and, that was everything. We played hard. We were just imagining, like, we weren't a sporty family. We didn't do sports or anything like that. I played a little bit of rugby in school, but that was really just because I was big and I got shoved at it. It wasn't because I was sporty in any way, so we'd always had this kind of affinity towards that stuff. And so Andrew said, yeah, I talked with him about it, and I said, look, if you get an opportunity that you don't take, like, say if you're working on something and somebody gets in touch with you and says, here, what about this? Would you give me their information and I'll fire a letter to them? I think, or an email. I can't even remember emailing them, but I'll send a CV, and I'm sure I'll get 1,000 no's. And maybe one time somebody will take a chance and say yes. We'll see what happens. And so pretty soon after that, he got working. He was working on a documentary series as a cameraman, and he got asked about doing a feature film as a runner, and he couldn't do it, so he gave me the lady's information that I'd be in contact with him, and it just basically turned out that there was this whole kind of, they were a Dublin-based production. They're going to film in Belfast, and there was this whole kind of thing. They said that they would meet me. I was in Dublin, and I came up to Belfast to meet them, and they missed me. They'd gone to Dublin, and then they were going, we'll meet you in Dublin, and I was in Belfast. And whatever way it happened, there was like 2 or 3 things where it failed to happen, and not on my end. I was always, they didn't do it, and then the job came and went, and they kind of said to me, oh, we're so sorry, this is all our fault, it's not you, it was our bad thing, and we'll keep you in mind that for once the production starts. So I think purely out of the fact that I'd kind of been messed around a little bit, they asked me to come up and meet the first assistant director, I had no idea what that was. I didn't understand what that job was. And so I met this guy, a gentleman called Robert Quinn, and we sat and we had a conversation, and he was asking me things, and I think he was really kind of trying to sound out how I could process information, and how could I explain, how did you get here today, and little things like this. I think he just wanted to hear me, could I explain things in a way, and really what actually happened at the end of it, I got the job, and it was purely because the lead actor on the film was Brendan Gleeson, and I am the same height and have the same hair color as Brendan Gleeson, and so I was able to stand in for him on set. So whenever they went to go set the lights and all of that kind of stuff, I would stand in on the set, and that's pretty much the only reason I got the.
I very much doubt it, Barry. Now your modesty. Big time.
I think that was a big thing to do with the start. I mean, it's just like I think they thought, well, look, he's not. He's vaguely sensible, but he matches those criteria, so we have a need for somebody like that. And it turned out, so I was basically brought in as his stand-in, so I would stand in for him whenever they were setting scenes. But that was great because I was standing in for the lead actor, which means I was on in on the set an awful lot. And as somebody who was completely green, I had no idea anything about film production, you know, like to think that I had. I'd watched a few making of documentaries on DVDs or whatever, but, you know, I didn't actually understand it. But I stood there in the middle of everything and watched everybody work. And so from the start, I got a really good sense of what everybody's jobs were, what were the demands on them, how did they interact with everything, what were the terminologies that they use. Because there's an awful lot of lingo that's very, you know, if you come in completely raw to it, you know, people have a, like in any workplace, have a way of discussing things and talking about things that can just sweep right over your head. So I was fortunate because an awful lot of the time, whenever you start out in the film industry as a like a runner or something like that, you're stuck miles away from the action. You're kind of sent to kind of, you go down the end of that street, make sure nobody turns around and walks down here because they're going to create noise. You're away from the action. So I was right in the middle of it. So I saw an awful lot. That really, I feel like, helped me get started. And very quickly, they were giving me a lot more responsibility, and that kind of carried through into the next job. But at that stage, the film industry was not really as strong as it is now in Northern Ireland. And, you know, so I had long periods where I wasn't working, I had to go back into other jobs and things like that. And, you know, but I stuck with it, and 20 years later, a little bit more grey, a little more seasoned.
Just a tiny bit. But Barry, that's, I want to sort of touch on a bit of, we've talked a bit about the background of what it is that you do, but we haven't actually connected it to anything real as such with regards to the content. So tell us a bit about some of the things that you've worked on. I believe you worked on, say, for example, The Fall with Gillian Anderson and Jamie Dornan.
Yeah, I did. I kind of came in midway through the second series of The Fall. I'd done some stuff on series one, just like bits and pieces, and then I came in kind of through the second series, and I kind of I got on very well with both Alan Cubitt, the writer, director, producer. He and I got a really good relationship very quickly. You know, we kind of found a good working partnership. And with Gillian Anderson as well, you know, and she and I really kind of got on well. You know, Gillian can be tough, you know, and she would admit that, and I've got an awful lot of love for her. But, you know, she and I had a good relationship in that way, and Jamie's just great. Jamie's down to earth, and, you know, like he's especially, I think, you know, probably, I don't know if he's different whenever he's not here, but, you know, I think when he's here, he's very, very Northern Ireland, and, you know, he doesn't, he's one of the guys, so it was fun.
He's one of the guys I'd definitely like to meet, have a pint with.
I haven't seen him for a long time. I was working with his dad last year. His dad came out and did some stuff, yeah. So it was good fun. It was a good opportunity to get working on something like that. But obviously, especially the first series of The Fall have been really, really well received. So there's a lot of kind of, you know, sort of, I wouldn't say pressure on, you know, like the second series. I think, you know, I feel like we did well. I think the third series was probably a little bit more, you know, difficult for us, you know, expectation on it and where we could take the story. But it was, you know, a good experience to be part of that, you know. And I'd say, you know, the majority of my work I've done has really been within Northern Ireland. It's only really been the last 3 years that work has taken me more away from it, you know. So yeah.
So I wanted to talk a wee bit more about that. You know, one of the most recent movies that you've been working on is Ordinary Love with Liam Neeson.
Yeah, that
was here.
Mm-hmm, yeah, we filmed all that, and that was great. You know, I got to say that's one of my favorite. If I think about my favorite productions I've worked on, that's right up there. You know, I think that was. I mean, it would be hard to say. All of these things have got their different challenges and different, you know, aspects to them. But you know, Ordinary Love was a great one to work on. It was really nice because it was I was very fortunate. It was the third film that I had made with filmmakers, local filmmakers who are good friends. Lisa Barrister and Glenn Leyburn, good friends of mine. I'd done all 3 of their films with them: Cherry Bomb, Good Vibrations, and then Ordinary Love. And that opportunity to have that relationship extend through that is really, you know, really fulfilling. You know, you've got, all of a sudden there's such trust. You know, they know that I'm fully committed to them, and they are also really committed towards working with me, and you know, so the trust is great. And you know, something like Ordinary Love was really interesting to do, because it was a really delicate script. You know, it's a story about cancer survival. It's it's a story about a couple who, you know, very early on, the wife, she's diagnosed with breast cancer, and it's about how they cope with that physically, emotionally, all of those things. And there's a lot of truth in it. You know, it's kind of, it's not overly dramatic. There's no, you know,
It's very ordinary.
oh, we got to save their life. Well, you know, it's not like that. You know, it's very day to day. You know, Ordinary Love, it was originally called Normal People, and now there's another series called Normal People based on the book that's come out. So
yeah, I was a bit confused by that, because I actually haven't watched the movie yet, but do plan to watch it this weekend.
Spoil it. No spoilers then.
Spoilers, definitely not. But you're saying, so the Normal People that's on TV is related to Ordinary Love, is that right?
No. Both of them had the same title, and we chose to change the title because the book, that Normal People, the TV series,
It's completely different.
It's completely different.
Okay.
So ours was changed to Ordinary Love.
Ordinary Love. But it's so nice. Like, I mean, I've seen the trailer for it, and you know, and even the likes of The Fall and things, where it's so iconic to have lots of Northern Ireland, especially Belfast, like scenes and places and associations, and the familiarity of that for so many people. And it's just so lovely to get it on the map in that way, you know.
Yeah, I think that the Northern Irish setting gave it a really down to earth feel, you know, because it's a very down to earth story. It's a story that, you know, so many people encounter in their life, you know, and that sort of thing about having a loved one going through an illness like that. And you know, there's a real honesty to, it's based on a true story. It's based on the writer's experiences with his wife's sort of journey through breast cancer. And there's a real honesty to it. You know, there's some great scenes just where, you know, you see the frustration boiling over in that sort of way from both people, you know, sort of going, realizing how, even though she is the person dealing with it, and one of the things as well is amazing actors, you know, really fortunate to work with fantastic professionals, and you know, Liam Neeson and Leslie Manville, you know, were just incredible to work with, you know, and that was really interesting, because one of the things, you know, one of the things I've realized in my line of work is kind of how the atmosphere that you create on the set is very conducive to what you're trying to do. You know, I had just come off doing a thing for Netflix called The Last Kingdom, which we shot out in Hungary, which was it's actually the new series of it just came out last week, and it's a big Vikings, you know, battling, you know, kind of everything that we were doing was really kind of, I just come off doing like some work on like a huge battle scene to finish the third series, and you know, and everything was about hundreds of stuntmen, sword fights, limbs being hacked off, you know, horses throwing people, you know, it was, and you know, the energy that you need to bring to that, you know, and I find specifically even my energy really, you know, you're everything's about pumping everything up, and you're kind of you're getting in everybody's face, and especially, you know, one of the things I like doing was you know, I found out, you know, you realize just again how, you know, I was trying to deal with a lot of people who were speaking a different language, and so I had a sort of an assistant on set who was really very capable guy called Gergo, who was essentially my voice in Hungarian. So when you were talking to all of the stuntmen, talking to all of the extras, talking to all of these people in these battle scenes, I would say something and then he would repeat it in Hungarian, and I was like, oh, it's kind of taking so long. So we would just end up like, I got them to bring big speakers in, we blared out music, and we were like hyped them all up with music, and then you were around grabbing everybody, and you know, really pumping the energy up like you like in a rock concert, you know. And then when we went and did Ordinary Love, which is the next project I did, you know, I kind of chatted with Lisa and Glenn, the directors, about how we wanted to approach, you know, that was a big conversation about what was necessary. And when we read the script, well, when I read the script, obviously they were very involved in the script before that, everything was very it was almost about the silence in between the words, you know. So in that sort of way that, you know, only a couple that's been together for a long time, you can just exist with, you know, not much needs to even really be said. And so you had these lovely scenes with the two of them, and they're just watching TV or they're having their breakfast, and you know, everything. Then was like, we're bringing this all down. Where everything is down. You know, even how you call action on the set changes. You know, and you're bringing everything down. And we were really, really fortunate. The crew really responded to that, and we had this beautiful, calm atmosphere throughout the whole thing, and that was great. So it was a really, really rewarding experience to be part of, and I got to see the film, you know, and it really turned out really well. And one of the things that you don't really, you know, sometimes I kind of feel like that kind of art that kind of gets away from me sometimes, because I get so into the, you know, the nuts and bolts. One of the first things I was told by Lisa, the director, it was like, this is a love story. It's not a cancer story. It's a love story. And I was like, no way, come on. Like, it's all, we're like chemotherapy, and I'm working about how we do bald wigs and, you know, how much time that takes and working I do in that time. And then when I saw it, she, you know, 100% right. Everything was about them. Everything was about their relationship and how it survived this. And you know, it's something I really feel very proud of that worked on.
So good. It's funny because part of it was filmed quite close to where we live down in
Yes. Yeah.
And it's so funny because Jack, as you know, you've worked with my partner Jack, who does special effects, and he spent a lot of time. He worked with you on Woman in White, the music series, which was great, but he's mostly worked a lot on Game of Thrones here. But he just so happened one day to be asked by the crew, could he bring down something to do with the boiler for the shower scene or something, or he had dismantled the boiler. Anyway, he's on the credits for Ordinary Love for doing that tiny little thing. But it just shows you how many people have to be involved to make something happen. And that's what wants to lead me on to what I want to talk about now. So one of my favorite series at the moment is Killing Eve. And I want to hear a bit about your role in that production. However, you know, when you're watching it, it's 40 minutes and you just never want it to end. That's what I feel. And you just think, you know, when you're watching it, you're obviously watching it in mind, knowing that, okay, so on season 3, which is on now, I don't want to give any spoilers to anybody, but we're coming into episode 4, season 3 is coming out today. So, you know, in association with that, I think that you were first assistant director on episode 3 and today's episode 4 coming out. And it's amazing because, you know, the amount of time, I mean, you know, the amount of time that you had to spend away, the amount of dedication that you had to give, the amount of countries that you had to fly to, all for this 40 minutes that you watch, and it goes like that. And I'm a viewer, I don't work in the industry. I can only begin to appreciate how much work that it takes to literally translate 40 minutes onto screen for us for entertainment. And in a sense, you are part of the key workers in hindsight, because you didn't realize how valuable you would be to us at this time when we are all in lockdown. So in a sense, you're inadvertently a key worker, Barry, just so you have a bit of credit there. But tell us a bit about Killing Eve. And I mean, it's an amazing series. People love it. You know, Jodie Comer is absolutely amazing, you know, as well as, isn't it Sandra Ho? Amazing acting. So tell us a bit about that and how you got on with that.
I mean, it was great. I mean, it was a great experience to be part of it. You know, I was. It was funny. I was actually prepping on a commercial, so for Irish tourism, and I was down way like 2 or 3 hours south of Dublin on a bus, and I got an email. I have an agent in London who finds things for me, and she said, "What would you think about Killing Eve?" And I was like, "Wow, amazing!" It was very funny that I had actually, like, it's one of those things I'm terrible for. If I've missed the start of something, I really struggle to kind of binge it. You know, I kind of, and my sister had been saying to me for ages, "You got to watch Killing Eve. You got to watch Killing Eve. You got to watch Killing Eve." And I'd been away for a few days, and I downloaded a few episodes of it and I'd taken it away to watch. And then I, like, just randomly, then I get this email on Thursday going, would you
That's so surreal.
I phoned up, and they kind of said, well, to my agent Amy, and she said, look, they need somebody to start on Monday.
Wow.
You need to have a conversation with the director tonight. And I was like, well, I'm in the middle of nowhere, what time can I do? I think I'll be home because I'm finishing up this recce. I've got to get to Dublin, then I've got to get a train, and then I'm going to get home and I've got to get in. So it's like, can I talk to somebody about 8 o'clock? Is that too late? And so it all got set up, and I got sent a script, and I read the script on the train on the way back, and
And was this for season 2 or season 3?
Season 3.
Yeah.
For season 3. And so I had a Skype meeting with the director, Miranda Bowen, that evening, and we got on really well in our conversation, just to talk about the way we wanted to approach things and how we wanted to do that, and the things that we felt were important to us about how we went at it. And so the next morning I got a call going, okay, we think we're going to, from one of the producers, saying, look, we think we're going to do this. We think it's going to happen. But look, just so you know, there was another meeting set up for midday with another first assistant director. So look, we just feel like we have to do the right thing. The director said that she wants you, but we think it's important that we just, honor that. And I was like, look, of course, go ahead. He said, look, but we'll be back in touch. We'll call about 2 o'clock, and we'll let you know. So of course 2 o'clock went, 3 o'clock went.
Oh no! Long day.
I know what's happening. They've met this other person, and that's going well, and they're not saying no to me because they want to do a deal with that person, and and all this kind of stuff. And then finally at about 6 o'clock, I get a call saying, yeah, like, you're doing it. And it's funny because I've been sitting down, and I hate, you never want to kind of walk away from the job, but I've been doing this, setting up this ad, and I've been getting all these calls going, can you do this, can you do this, can you do this? And I was like, all the time knowing I'm probably going to have to call them and say, I can't do your job, which is filming on Monday. And and at the same time, in my other hobby life, where it's where I know you wanted a little bit of, I played American football for 11 years, and
which I do want to touch on in a moment.
Yeah, which we were that weekend. We were having the national championship game that we were playing in, and I had arranged to have like a whole bunch of the guys that played around me come over to my house for a barbecue. I'm trying to set the barbecue up, do the work, waiting for this phone call. Wow. And then I finally get the phone call going, it's done, look, you're doing it, cool, we'll be in touch. 9 o'clock, then I get another phone call from another producer. I've had about 5 beers at this point with the guys. I pick up the phone, and I look and I see a missed call, and I was like, I texted them back, and I'm so sorry, I just missed your call. Look, don't worry, I'll call you in the morning. Instantly phone back, and they're, okay, so we want you on a flight on Monday morning, and you're going to go to Romania on Monday night, and then you're in Recce, then you go to Barcelona, and then we'll see you. So you go. I was like, wow, and it just was like a complete whirlwind getting into it, and that was the thing which for me was the new experience, was working with all of the international travel and the logistics of that, because we filmed in 3 countries. Yeah, we were the only block in season 3 that we filmed. So we started our shoot in Barcelona. We did like 4 days in Barcelona, and we did then a block of time in London, and then we finished our shoot with about a week's work in Romania, and for stuff which really is stuff that's going to come up in the episode this evening. Mm-hmm. So that was really interesting, and you get used to sort of, you work in a certain way with everybody, but then you work in these different environments, and then you're working with different people because there are local crew members that are brought in, and you're having to, again, you working with language barriers and that kind of thing. But that's a big part of that series. A big part of the series, the international locations, and they're very, very fortunate to turn around and go, well, I mean, I'm sure people who've watched it, have seen that the Villanelle character's got this incredible apartment in Barcelona.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unbelievable
Well,
location.
see, so it is actually like, 'cause that's one of the questions I wanted to ask. That is a place.
That's a real
It's so
legit.
good.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, a lot of productions would turn and say, "Well, find something around the corner that'll just do that." For that, just find any old apartments. They're all the same. This production will go, okay, so we will go there and we'll film for however many days doing interior scenes because it's the right thing. So that sort of attention to it is really important in that series, and that's one of the things I think which really makes it stand out. You've got these great characters, but they also, they don't shy away from the glamour of it. That's the thing.
No,
They
and because I suppose in the serial killer world, Jodie's coming up.
yeah.
And she's obviously been given this place as a reward for her doings and dealings. But one
Mhm.
thing that I love the most, without giving away any spoilers, this isn't, her costumes. Whoever organizes her wardrobe, I
Yeah.
need to meet that person.
Well, I mean,
Hello?
it's a big part. Again, that's a big part of the show and a big part of what they do. And there's a lot of conversation about that and a lot of back and forward. And she's very, very involved in that too. She doesn't feel like something's right, then she's got her opinion, and she understands that character so well. It's amazing, actually. It's funny. Again, you talk about people's different approaches. Julie's very intuitive about how she wants to. That doesn't sound like she works hard at it, but what I found was you would do, you'd be on take 3, take 4, and you would just see it growing and developing. And yes, as all of those kind of little looks and things that she's so good at doing, and
Brilliant.
things, those develop really organically throughout the process of it. Whereas somebody like Sandra, who plays Eve, she's very, she wants conversation about this stuff. She's very exacting, very, very deliberate about what she wants to do. And it's just these different approaches to it, and how you kind of make these things work. And they're both fantastic, both really, really
I
great.
seen an interview with Jodie, and she was saying that she's very clumsy and that she had a stunt double for a lot of the stuff that she had to do. But one thing that she did herself was she had to climb the wall. It was, I think, back in season 1.
Episode 1, I think it was. Yeah,
To climb the wall and to be really dexterous, but yet she's not dexterous in any which way. But even things like the last episode, obviously there's a lot of stuff goes on, so I'll not be giving away too much here. But even in the episode that you worked on there, the last one, episode 3, where she literally had like it was some kind of thing that she threw. It looked like a knife.
The fork.
Yes.
This thing, yeah, for the piano.
Yes, and you just think, how on earth? It's just like a dart, bullseye, right in her head. And you just think,
Yeah.
wow, like.
That was, I mean, there's and it's amazing just the number of discussions you get into. Are we going to do that? We're going to throw something for real. Is it all going to be visual effects? And all of these kind of things, all of these layers of how you do that. I mean, I remember we having to do things like I'm calling, like, okay, we're having a kill meeting. Right? How many kills have we got? How do we do this?
Kill meeting.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, so what part of this kill, is special effects, what part is visual effects, what part is stunts, what part is how much costume makeup, all of these different people that get involved, yeah, so it's just a lot to it, a lot to all of these conversations, because again, what you don't want to get to is you get to the set and then we're all standing and go, okay, how are we going to do that? But I don't know, we have to have all this stuff thought out very much in advance, or else you've just lost your time. And there's always things that curveballs that come and sort of dismantle this stuff for you, and you're fighting against that all the way. You just.
But I think it's one of the best things I've ever seen on the BBC now, for sure. And isn't it David Holmes who's kind of responsible for the soundtrack for it, which is another really, really great guy from here. And it's absolutely brilliant. The music is so perfect. You couldn't have picked.
One of the things, I mean, like, obviously David was produced on Ordinary Love. He's very, very close with Lisa Barsa and Glenn Leyburn. Glenn and he go way, way, way back. Great friends for ages. And one of the things which is really interesting about the way David works, and it was great on Killing Eve, we got this as well, that you just able to get, he sends out, like, he'll create like a mood soundtrack.
Yeah.
That is just about the kind of the right vibe for the show. And so I had this 100-track soundtrack that never will make it into the series, but it's all the kind of stuff that makes you feel. I mean, we had this an awful lot when one of the other my other favorite things I worked on, Good Vibrations, the story in the 70s, 80s here. And David again was very, very, very involved in that, producing on that, and he had collated a soundtrack of all of the music from that time from these bands, and and that again really kind of sort of drove us in a lot of ways. We were listening to that all the time. This was giving us the right vibe for the show, even though there's so many tracks that were never made it into the movie, or weren't meant to be featured in the movie, but just was immersing us at the time. And music's a real shortcut to that sort of stuff. Again, it's going back to the getting all the Vikings to get all rowdy. You can just kind of shortcut into that energy an awful lot with that sort of thing. And Killing Eve really does that very well with location and music. It sets the scene very, very well.
It's perfect. I absolutely love it. I don't want it to end. How many episodes are there in season 3?
8. So and it's great that the one on tonight, episode 4, is my last one. I have no idea. I kind of know a little bit of what happens in 5 because there was some crossover, and we had to sort of, because we were finishing up our time in Romania, and then they were going to carry on with some shooting there, so I was aware of some of the stuff that they were doing, but I don't really know where it goes to, which is great. So I kind of have my bit where I'm watching it going, ooh, that wasn't so, oh, wish we'd done that different, or I'm happy with that, which I always do when I'm watching anything I've worked on. But now I get to be a fan, kind of.
Get to be a fan. It's just lovely.
Next week on, I get to just enjoy it.
Exactly. And you've worked on obviously some amazing things with some amazing people and had some amazing experiences, Barry. If there was one moment in your career to date that made you realize this is why I do what I do, have you got one of those moments that you'd like to share?
Yeah. My favorite ever moment was when we were filming Good Vibrations. We had the film culminates with a benefit show that's put on in the Ulster Hall for Good Vibrations Records.
Yeah.
And the kind of the folklore of it is that the police were turning everybody away, and because they didn't have tickets or whatever, and they basically threw the doors open and just let everybody in for free. And it was meant to be a thing that was meant to save the business and save everything, and they just Terry Hooley just let everybody come in, and we had a huge amount to get through in the day that we one day we could film in the Ulster Hall, and we had a huge amount we had to get through. So it's a really, really challenging day, and we kind of had to do some other scenes around it, and then we had to do some of the stuff with the performances on stage, and we had to film the crowd. Oh, huge day. And we had kind of about 70 extras at the start for like 10 hours of the day, or like 8 hours of the day, to film all of the stuff up onto the stage. So we were running around, a couple of cameras in amongst the crowd, filming them, looking up onto the stage, all the stuff onto the stage. And then the guys from Snow Patrol were involved, and in a kind of a producer capacity as well. And they basically Gary Lightbody agreed to do an acoustic show for at the end of the day, and that was going to be done as a free show. So we then filled the Ulster Hall with Snow Patrol fans for the last 2 hours of the day, and we had to film everything out into the crowds and have this, because we couldn't afford to pack out how many thousand people, I don't know, fits in the Ulster Hall.
About 6.
So we basically filled the Ulster Hall for the last 2 hours of our shooting day, and we shot everything up on the stage. It was chaotic. We just had cameras just flying around, shooting everything. We had all the bands come out and perform. We did everything, with a packed house. I was out on the stage grabbing the microphone going, you gotta keep going, you gotta keep jumping, screaming and jumping up and down. And I remember looking over to the side of the stage, and I saw at the monitors the side where we were watching the video feed of what we were shooting, there was the writers and a couple of guys who were from bands that had been on stage that night when it had really happened, and they were all in tears, they were watching it going, this is just, I don't know if it was just how it was or just how they wanted to remember it. It was this amazing experience. And I remember at the end of it, we were, I mean, it was an incredible day. I mean, the achievement of what we got through in that day was huge. And I just remember Sophie, my now wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, came down to see the end of it, and she had to practically carry me. We went to sit up in the balcony to watch the Snow Patrol gig at the end, and she had to practically carry me, and I'm not a small gentleman at 6'5". And Sophie,
she's not a big girl, so basically she must be strong.
She's a very strong girl, but still, that's a lot of weight to handle. She had to practically carry. I was so drained of everything. I'd given everything I could on that day, and also my team. I can't pretend that was only an incredible team of people with me who did it, and that's just, it was a prize to see the reaction from the people who were there, to see that, and the adrenaline coursing through you, and you see. I remember standing on the stage shouting into the crowd and looking at the couple of the young actors who were playing the band, and just, they were just couldn't. They all wanted to go back on and do more songs. We're going, like, you don't have any more songs to do. We can't just go, oh no, let us go out again. They were just jumping around and miming to like these great Belfast punk tunes.
So that was the moment for you that you realized, right, this is why I do what I do. I love this.
I think so. I think I really, really enjoyed that. I mean, but there's great moments in so many things. That's an obvious one because it's so adrenalized and so exciting to be part of. And again, it's a day that we never should have been able to make. I think we could shoot this. I mean, on average, you film about 2.5, 3 pages a day. Maybe if you're on a TV show, you might film 4, 5. We had something like 5.5 pages of script to get through. We had several scenes, a lot of conversations, multiple characters. We had to do, we had 2,000 people to manage. We had a full gig to put on after it. We had all sorts of sound checking and things. I mean, colossal thing. We shouldn't have been able to do it, and we got through it, and that was an amazing thing to be part of. To be a part of it, because so many people did such an amazing job on that day. And that's one that really sticks out. But there are beautiful moments and just really quiet things, and just when you feel like this is something really special. It's one of the things which is great about it. It's a job, but it can be very different. You can have these different experiences, and you work with a lot of different interesting people.
Yeah, very diverse. Well, speaking of music and gigs, obviously you're a big fan. Well, I'll just tell everybody of Metallica. There's no point hiding it. And Jack had bought me a ticket for Ozzy Osbourne, and it's been cancelled and delayed and postponed. Had you any Metallica tickets ready to go?
No, they were not going to be touring for a while. I did see them last summer. That was my 10th or 11th time seeing them. First band I ever went to see, and the last band I've seen.
Yeah.
But we were, I love a good old rock concert, and so I was looking forward to. We were going to go and see Rammstein, and I was hoping to get to see Iron Maiden, and then I think Faith No More were playing. So all these good bands, we're all around about the same, like in the space of about 4 or 5 days. It's on mid-June. I don't know if anything's officially been cancelled yet, but I'm going to guess it's going to be.
I would say it probably will, definitely for sure. So you touched earlier about the American football side of things, which is completely different, and I suppose it's your hobby outside of your work, outside of your home. How long have you been into that? Did you say 11 years or so?
I played for 11 years. I retired last summer.
At
the end, I know. I had to stop. I mean, I had to stop for a lot of reasons. I was first and foremost. I think I was becoming less and less effective as the years rolled on, and there were guys who I was taking time away from. If I went on to play, so they deserved their time, and not me trying to take it away. So. But also, again, my family, it's quite a time-consuming thing. It's a long game and it's a long season for us. We be kind of like 8 months of playing time really across the year, and then I've been the chairman of my team's the Belfast Trojans, and been
Brilliant.
the chairman for the last 6 years, maybe more.
You still see the guys, like, I mean,
8 years I've been chairman for. My goodness. Yeah. So I'm still doing that. I'm still active in it. It's been a really important part of my life. It's, again, it's, we sort of think about things that I think we touched on it earlier, but kind of understanding who you are, finding yourself, and how that's, I think there's an awful lot of pressure on people to really make decisions very young. I mean, certainly I felt like that, at the time. You pick your university degree, and then that's who you are, and you go and you do this.
that defines you,
Yeah, I don't really think. I think it really took me until my early 30s, and what had happened was I kind of got into my early 30s, and like a lot of people, I mean, I was single then, and a lot of my friends were in, like, serious relationships or even getting married, and and once you're into that, obviously people come out through that again. I mean, it's probably a couple of years again for me where I can be social again once the children are a little bit older. But you get into that thing, and all of a sudden I find like my social life just shrank down. And I'd played rugby, and I hadn't been sporty, and only been really whenever I got to be about 18, 19, I actually really started to appreciate sports, and I really started to really enjoy. So I played a little bit of club rugby for a couple of years. I was never really good. I just wasn't good at it, and I kind of sort of stumbled into this one again because a friend of mine had a record shop up in Coleraine, and a guy came in. He was my friend Dave, who had this record store. He was a big American football fan, and a guy came in to his shop and saw he was wearing an American football t-shirt or something. They started a conversation. This guy was setting up a team in Coleraine, and my friend Dave called me and said, "Listen, there's a guy setting up an American football team. You should be an American football player." And I was like, I don't know anything about it. I mean, I've played some video games. I've maybe seen the Super Bowl once, a bit of it, I don't really know anything about it. He said, it doesn't matter. So I got in contact with this guy, and he very nicely said, listen, while I'd love to have more players here in Belfast, and there's a team in Belfast, I couldn't ask you to travel all the way to Coleraine. And so I just kind of went down, and I really enjoyed it. But then I got injured, and I separated my shoulder, and I never really properly rehabbed it, and I had to stop playing. But a couple of the guys really kept in contact with me, and then they started a new team, which was the Trojans, and they kept on at me. Would you come down? Would you want to get involved? Would you want to do stuff? And eventually, I kind of said, yeah, I'll come down. Why not? And it was amazing because I was at this point in my life where my social circle had really shrunk down. I really had lost that opportunity for having a social life, and that's difficult, especially if you're a single person, and obviously you start to feel like you're just kind of existing, and you're not getting out, and you start to worry about things. I mean, well, not everybody does, but I suppose a lot of us want to have relationships, and we want to do things, and I just felt like I was just sort of wasting away. And all of a sudden I went down, and what I noticed really, which was surprised me, which was just how I was welcomed. And the thing more so than the sport was the camaraderie from as soon as I turned up, the guys were just like, okay, you're one of us, and we're going out tonight, and you're coming out tonight. And all of a sudden I went from like having no social circle. I had like, at that stage there was only like 15 of us, but I had like 15 mates on day one. We're going out, and I was like, okay. We went out that night, and I've got friendships I made on that day that are still so important to me today.
So good.
11, maybe 12 years later. And yeah, it's got to be 12 years. And, that carried me through. And, when I went from, being a kid that wasn't sporty and somebody hadn't really done that sort of stuff. And then I managed to win 5 national championships with them, so, and, and it's competitive. So, I mean, great level is being played at, but it's competitive for what it is. And so it's important to me that I kind of feel like it was a thing that I didn't want to retire until I won a championship.
Oh, and you did.
I had one with Heidi, and last summer I got to win, and I got to stand up with the trophy and my 2 little ones, because I want to say to them, look, I'm not going to say you have to be sporty. I'm not going to be a pushy dad in that way. I don't want to do that. I want them to find their own thing that they want to. But what it really is like, you don't ever have to say, I've missed that chance, because, I'm 46 years old. I was 45 when I won my last national championship. Not that I was that active in it, but I mean, I let all the good stuff happen with other people. I've got some.
You still achieved. You achieved something that was very important to you, and you
it was important to me. And I think that and I've been part of things off the pitch, which has been really rewarding. To see it grow from, I say, like 15 of us in a kind of muddy field to like 60, 70 people. Turning out multiple teams, and and we're and we've won 5 national championships, making us the kind of second most successful team in Ireland in half the time that the most successful team has done. And so I'm proud of it, and it's good. And I think it just is. Some of these things, it might be silly and it might be daft, but if you get joy out of it and you feel like you've got an achievement out of it, well, it's great. It's great for your soul. I mean, it just makes you feel alive. And
there's definitely worse things you could do in order to achieve some satisfaction. And I've seen on your Facebook profile sometimes you have the picture of yourself in the full kit, and it definitely suits you. There's no question. But one thing I have noticed that I want to talk about briefly before we end, we actually have something in common massively that I didn't actually realise until recently when I saw it on your social media, is that we have absolute adoration for Star Wars.
Oh yeah, that's my first memory.
Mine too. Okay, you tell me yours first.
My first memory, like vividly, is I can't remember if it came out. I know obviously it came out in 1977, but I don't know whether it hit here in 1978 or whatever. But my first memory is sadly not watching it in the cinema, but coming out after the cinema. I remember, I can't remember what they called it, the old cinemas that were down where the Jury's Inn now beside Inst. It was a can. They changed the name so many times. Anyway, that's where we saw it, and my folks had parked, I think, the far side of City Hall, kind of towards where the waterfront end is now. And obviously it's the 70s Belfast, so you want to be careful going around the city at night. But they see me, and my brother was in a buggy, and we were walking back to the car, and all I can remember is the emotion, the excitement, the feeling so energized. And I just remember breaking free of my dad's hand and running because it was the only, like, I'm 4 years old, the only release I can have is just to run and run. And I remember him shouting at me to stop, like running towards traffic lights, and my mum pushing my brother in the buggy, and I just remember that emotion. And it's just something that I don't know if people probably, kids now, I don't think probably experience things in the same way, because they don't realize that back then it was all we had. There wasn't anything else. There wasn't millions of cartoon shows to get, this is now the flavor of the month this week, or this is the new thing. This was it. I played that from then till like I stopped playing with toys. That was every day we played Star Wars.
Exactly. I absolutely adored it. We had a video shop in the 1980s, an independent video store. And that's what me and Quentin Tarantino have in common, is our parents both owned independent video stores, pre-Blockbuster, pre-Extravision. And that's class. But anyway, I can remember, I have 2 older brothers, no sisters, so you had to watch certain things that you wouldn't necessarily have wanted to watch. Don't get me wrong, I watched my Rainbow Bright and I watched the Jungle Book and all that. Star Wars was very prevalent in our household. And my brother Stefan would be very similar to you in the sense he kept a lot of the original toys and things like that. But I had a 1981 Chewie doll, and I still have a 1981 Chewie doll despite that sort of height. And I adored Chewie, but also was kind of scared of him at the same time. Like, he was my best friend, but I was really scared, and I would sometimes cry. So it was this kind of like love-hate relationship I had with Chewie when I was literally 1 year old. So my mum said to me when I was literally 11 months old, when I was starting to sort of give words, half words, literally I was singing the soundtrack to Star Wars before I even spoke a word. she said I was just singing the soundtrack. And then I remember my earliest actual memory, because I can't remember that now, but my earliest memory was about, I think, 1 and 1 month, because I didn't know it was that, but my mum said, well, it would have been when you were 1 and 1 month, was when my babysitter Eamon and I were sitting watching The Empire Strikes Back, and it was coming up the screen at the start, you know, and I can remember fast forwarding and rewinding and fast forwarding around with my toes. And I can remember sitting there, and my dad called him or something to get something, and he went, just you go on ahead there and watch it, I'll be back in a minute. And I was just like that on the screen watching Star Wars. I was just so fascinated. I absolutely loved it, and I just love meeting another Star Wars fan. He's like, I mean, it's obviously
I sadly I didn't have all of my original toys. I played with them so hard when I was a kid. I took care of them, but they just got destroyed. They were played with every day. And then I think what happened was that there was some relative came over, like a second or third cousin or something like that, back at really the very end of Star Wars being a thing in the 80s, like, you know, after Return of the Jedi, who just got into it younger, and I gave him all this stuff, and I gave it all away, and I don't have it. And then I went through this thing in the 90s. They bought out a lot of the merchandising, and I bought loads of it. You know, I was like, bought all this stuff up. I went and I got it from my mum's house last week, because I'd been saying, I need to get all this stuff. And I went through, it's so funny, just going through it with the kids, and like going, oh look, there's this and there's this, and they were like, oh, this is so great that we get to play with this now. And like, well, you would think, but that's all. I'm going back into stories in the space. And but I gave Heidi a doll, a girl, like a bounty hunter girl doll that she is obsessed over now. And because I said to her, look, you know, you got to take care of it. That's a, you know, that was a special one that, you know, is hard to find, and you know, you and it's like, so it's like a 12-inch, like Barbie sized doll, and she is like all about it now. And so we're May the 4th, you know, so it's Star Wars Day, so she's all excited about that, you know. So we'll do some
I'll
stuff.
give you plenty of things to do when you're in lockdown, you know, and I think that on that note we'll leave it there. I could talk to you all day long about so many different things. And also if people want to watch this evening, which is Monday, they can watch your latest
I think it's out on the iPlayer, so you know.
Yeah, BBC Killing Eve tonight. It's on. So look, thanks again so much for taking the time to chat with me today, Barry. And good luck with everything. And I hope that your next project, you know, is as good as our last. And I also hope that you get to see Metallica again really soon, and you get to see all your mates again from the American football, where you can all go out and have a pint and a barbecue. And those things that we maybe take a wee bit for granted, but now we can really appreciate them.
That's it. I hope that that's one of the things that maybe and I think we probably will learn something out of this experience, is going like that, you know, some of those things which are really, really important are things that we maybe have not put our focus onto, or not, you know, I mean, certainly I feel like I'm guilty of it, you know, as my career moved up a gear or two there in the last year, while everything became about, oh, well, what's the next thing, and like this opportunity to slow down and spend time with family, and realize the things that you miss, that are things like seeing certain people, and, you know, being, you know, around people, and maybe, you know, showing people a bit more kindness, which I'm hopeful that we come up with this as a kinder place. You know, it'll probably go back to normal eventually, but I'm hoping initially anyway that, you know, we kind of find some of this kindness that I think is being shown at the moment.
I think there is going to be a shift, definitely. You know, well, thank you. Thanks so much again, and take care. Have a lovely day, and enjoy your May Day.
I'm going outside the sun. Yeah, absolutely.
Take care. Bye.
Bye now. Take care.